Hello friends, and welcome to the Gospel of Thomas, or rather the Secrets from the Gospel of Thomas. And in this, in this particular video, we're going to be exploring saying number 105 from the Gospel of Thomas. A very enigmatic and strange saying indeed. A lot of people have trouble with this one. A lot of people have trouble with many of the sayings, and the thing you've got to remember about the Gospel of Thomas, and what anyone else tells you, is that each of the sayings, almost all of them, are written in metaphor, in a coded language, so that the uninitiated, having eyes to see, still will not see and still will not understand. This is a message for those who are spiritually advancing. And I presume if you have an interest in the Gospel of Thomas, that you certainly are one of those who are spiritually advancing. I certainly think these videos will help you to do just that. In this video, before I get into an explanation and an interpretation of saying number 105, I need to give you a little preface with a little advance information, or rather review of information you may already know. If you remember from the Gospel not from the Gospel of Thomas, but from the Gospel of Luke, it says, Jesus says very clearly in there that in the spirit world, in verse 5 of chapter 20, that in the spirit world we neither give nor take in marriage. Marriage doesn't exist as we know it here in this world, in the spirit world. Now that does not mean that you will not love your wife or your husband, or you will not recognize them. Once you cross over to the spirit world, for a duration of a certain length of what we would call time, but time doesn't exist there, but at least for an understanding for a while, you would see other people just as you saw them here on earth, just as you saw them here in this life, and you would recognize them and have the same connection with them. But as time goes by in the spirit world, and the longer you are there between incarnations, the longer you are in the spirit world, you begin to identify individuals as soul energy, as beings of light. And they begin to merge with other people that you've known in the past. You've got to remember that the person that was your mother in this life may have been your father in a previous life, may have been a close friend. We have different relationships from lifetime to lifetime. So it's something that we can't understand because we don't remember the spirit world. We don't remember how we feel there. We don't remember how we know things there. But it's just an entirely different existence. So I wanted you to know that and understand that, because it's important to understand that, to understanding a little bit more parts of saying 105, and indeed several of the sayings that are in the Gospel of Thomas. The spirit world is an entirely different world, and there, in that world, we exist in a state of absolute perfection. In other words, we're neither born, we neither die, nor do we take in marriage, or we're at a perfect age, the ideal age, whatever age really I think we want to be, we can be there. So yes, I think there are children there. I think there are children and adults. I think people there can pretty much be whatever they want to be in whatever period, an idealized period that they want to experience. It's just something we cannot understand. But anyway, that's important for you to know so that you'll understand my interpretation, and the interpretation of not only 105, but several of the sayings from the Gospel of Thomas. Remember, the Gospel of Thomas is written in metaphor. That's important to remember. I'm surprised a lot of scholars don't realize that. It's a secret language. And if you've seen many of my videos, you understand that, because you see yourself how that secret language can be revealed and be understood, as long as you understand the keys to the metaphors. So with that being said, let's get into saying number 105 from the Gospel of Thomas. Okay, friends, if you have a copy of the Gospel of Thomas in front of you, or if you have access to one, turn to saying 105. I'm going to read it to you, and if you can follow along with me, that'll be fine. Whoever knows the father and the mother will be called the child of a whore. What a strange thing to say. Jesus said, whoever knows the father and the mother will be called the child of a whore. Let's look at that closely. It makes absolutely no sense just reading it the way it is. Whoever knows the father and the mother will be called the child of a whore. we automatically are kind of drawn to, I think if you look at it, the strange wording there, particularly where it says the father and the mother, using an article in front of each one. It said nothing like whoever knows his father or her father and mother. It says the father and the mother. What is it referring to there? Well, once again, as in all throughout the Gospel of Thomas, we have a metaphor. We have a metaphor here. And this metaphor is repeating once again. This whole saying is repeating once again one of the major themes of the Gospel of Thomas, which I've repeated again and again and throughout the videos, which is polarity and overcoming the idea of polarity as being a path back to the Garden of Eden, as being a path back to the spiritual realm itself, as being the way to grow spiritually and to increase your own spiritual acumen, your own spiritual knowledge, your own spiritual awareness. Overcoming polarity. You got to remember, this world that we live in is polarized. Again, I repeat that. I know it's almost redundant the way I'm driving it home, but that's what the Gospel of Thomas is doing. It's driving home again and again, saying it many times over in different ways. Overcome the world of polarity. The world of polarity is the deceptive world, is the non-real world. It is the physical world. In the spiritual world, there is no polarization. There's no up, there's no down, there's no yesterday, tomorrow. Everything exists in a state of perfection. And here we have again, in the saying of the father and the mother, we have polarization, two opposites. What's the relationship between a father and a mother? It's polarity. They both, one is the opposite of the other. So he who knows, let me go back to the saying itself. What did I do? I did put it right here. Here we go. Jesus said, whoever knows the father and the mother, in other words, whoever becomes aware of the truth behind the concept of the father and the mother, which does not exist in the spiritual world. Yes, you will know your father and your mother if they've passed on. I don't mean that. But what I'm saying is the concept, the idea of father and mother. But there are no fathers and mothers in the spiritual world. There are no births. There are no children. They're just spiritual beings. That's what you are. That's what your present father and mother are, your children. Everyone you know, everyone you've ever known, everyone that you've known throughout any lifetime is a spiritual being. They may appear here in this world as a father or mother, but in the spirit world, father and mother means absolutely nothing, the concept. So whoever knows the truth of the father and the mother, we might add that in there, will be called the child of a whore. In other words, if you identify with the father and the mother concept and the idea of polarity, then you will be called a bad thing. You will be called a bad thing. You won't have knowledge. You will not have spiritual knowledge. You'll have worldly knowledge. Only the knowledge that most of us go through this life bearing up to and having to endure, and that's the knowledge of opposites, of having good days, bad days, terrible days, frightful days. Anything that represents polarity is a bad thing. That's why it'd be called the child of a whore. Now, if you read on in the Gospel of Thomas, down to verse 106, let me pull up verse 106 here. Yeah, 106. In the very first part of that verse, it answers the question about whoever knows the father and the mother. Jesus said, when you make the two into one, referring to the father and the mother here, you will become children of humanity. In other words, you're on the spiritual path. You're beginning to overcome the negative blocks that this life presents, which is the block of polarity. We live in a polarized world that this keeps us swirling in our own reality over and over again. We can't identify with the spiritual as long as we identify with the polarized, with the extreme of opposites. What also supports this and goes on deeper into it, you might say, if you look at saying 101 in the Gospel of Thomas. Let me read it to you, just in case you don't have a copy there before you. Whoever does not hate father and mother, as I do, cannot be my disciple. And whoever does not love father and mother as I do cannot be my disciple. For my mother gave me falsehood, but my true mother gave me life. Okay, let's go back, and I'm going to explain that one here too. You're going to get a little bonus in this video. Whoever does not hate father and mother, what it's referring to there, whoever does not hate this idea of opposites, this idea of polarization, whoever is fascinated with it, caught up in it, as he does, doesn't hate it, as he hates it, cannot be a disciple. In other words, you can't be a disciple of Jesus if you've not overcome the world of opposites, if you've not seen beyond the world of opposites to the world of perfection, to the idealized world of perfection, the spiritual world. But also, it sounds like a contradiction, but it's not. Whoever does not love father and mother, he's talking about here the father being the Holy Spirit and the mother being Sophia, wisdom. The Greek word Sophia for wisdom. As I do, cannot be a disciple of mine. So you have to have a little knowledge, a little working knowledge of not only other scriptures, the other sayings within the Gospel of Thomas, to interpret some of the sayings in the Gospel of Thomas, but you also need to have a little knowledge of what some would call Gnostic, but although I don't call it Gnostic here, the concept of the Father being the Holy Spirit and the Mother being Sophia, wisdom. For my mother gave me falsehood. That means he means the idea of identifying with a mother in this worldly life. Gave him falsehood, gave him the belief in polarization. He was trapped in the world of polarization because he believed he had a father and he believed he had a mother. Of course, he did have a father and a mother. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying the whole concept and idea of father and mother is a polarized idea, particular only to this space-time continuum, particular only to this reality. My true mother, which is Sophia, wisdom, gave me life. So I hope you understand that, and I hope you understand, I hope I wasn't too confusing in that. If you have any questions, be sure and write them in the comments below, or write directly to me at secretsofThomas@gmail.com. As soon as we finish our website, we'll have a direct email address that you can send there to us. But anyway, you send your emails to secretsofThomas@gmail.com, and I'll be glad to answer them for you. We may go into this again later because I'm sure it's going to show up again in some of the other sayings, the polarization, and it may draw us back to this where we have to take another look at this. Your comments are appreciated. I also want to take a moment to thank some people. I want to thank many of you that do comment, and I particularly want to thank probably our biggest supporter. I'm not going to give his last name, but his first name is Winston. He knows who he is. He's a Canadian, and if all Canadians are like Winston, gosh, it must be the land of angels. That's all I can say. Helping angels. That must be the land of helping angels. That's what I think of Canadians. He gives a good impression to me of Canadians, that's for sure. All right, until our next video, I'm David Clay, and if you want to contribute to us, if you want to help us in any way, just go to patreon.com, go to Secrets of Thomas David Clay, and there you can help us in any way that you see fit. Until our next video, and which will be about how to increase your spiritual awareness, your spiritual knowledge. I promised it in the last video, but it's a rather long video, and it's taking a little bit of time to work on that one. But it'll be a good one. It'll tell you how to use this information to increase your own spiritual acumen, your own spiritual knowledge, your own spiritual awareness. So until our next video, I'm David Clay saying have a great week and a great month. Good night.